Hi, I'm Erik Hall, the second vice president of the Associated Press Sports Editors and the managing editor of the Telegraph in Alton, Illinois. I'm joined by Kata Stevens, who just completed the 2024-2025 APSE Diversity Fellowship. Thanks for joining me to talk about that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, Erik.
So tell me, how was your overall experience with the APSE Diversity Fellowship this year?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, you won't hear anything new from me. Any of the other fellows will tell you just the connections that you make and with other professionals in the industry, all of the incredible sessions that we get to participate in that we can bring back so much valuable information to our various newsrooms or practices. And the friendships. Our class this year got really, really close, which I've heard is a pretty common thing, but we there was definitely a special bond by the end and very bittersweet ending to it, but we had a wonderful time.
That's great to hear. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were at the APSE Summer Conference in Minneapolis, and you talked about the sessions and what you took from that. Touch on some of the things you took away from the sessions in Minneapolis.
Oh my gosh, it was fantastic. So of the three conferences that we went to, the first was just our Diversity Fellows Conference, which was in Nashville. The second, we were judging, and so that was the primary focus. But to be in a room with these panels of professionals in these very, with very like hyper-specific expertise, was really, really cool. And just the ways that the conversations flowed, we had great moderators for all of these different panels. A strong favorite of mine was the one that you moderated, the LGBTQ plus panel, in which we talked a lot about how we covered trans people in sports these days and the responsibilities that come with it. But to have these great panels of experts and excellent moderators keeping the conversation going, but just also the thoughtfulness of the questions and bringing up different things. The conversations often went in different ways because, there are different problems that different newsrooms are encountering right now across the country. And there was so much representation from all over the country and from all of these different kinds of outlets, local newspapers, digital national publications, more multimedia focused. There was so much to get into, and I'm just really, really grateful to have gotten to witness some of it.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the panel we did. It sounds like the conference far exceeded your expectations.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you go into it knowing it's going to be special, and of course, there's like the little bit of pressure that comes from, I'm a freelancer right now, and there's kind of a necessity to network at these kinds of things when you're freelancing. But once you get there and start, running into people that you recognize from judging, there's the comfort level really kind of goes up, and it just kind of becomes just so productive. Every conversation was productive, even the ones where we were just talking about, where we're going to lunch. I'm learning something about Minneapolis there. And we did a lot outside of conference activity too, that just kind of put us all in a territory that, sometimes covering sports can be pretty lonely. And particularly as an editor, if you're not at every game, and sitting at home waiting for copy to come in, and to have that unity and those friendships and other colleagues who are experiencing the same kinds of daily trials that you are is just fantastic. So always exceeded every conference exceeded my expectations.
Talk to me about what made you decide to apply for the APSE Diversity Fellowship.
Sure. I was reached out to by Roxana Scott, formerly of the USA Today Network, who her career is one that I've been following for a very long time. She's done some incredible work in this kind of digital evolution of sports journalism that's being necessitated across local papers. And she reached out to me over Twitter DM actually, and suggested that I apply. And I had heard of the fellowship, but not really considered myself a candidate for a number of reasons. When she reached out, I happened to be the sports editor of a newspaper in South Carolina, the Post and Courier. And so that, I guess, gave me a little bit more of a relevance to what the fellowship was looking for. But before, I was pretty happy just producing sports audio. And it really caters to people who are new to leadership positions or are looking to rise into them. And so it felt like a good time. I also, just for the record, I've never really considered myself diverse. I entered the sports journalism world in in recent years where there are more women in this space, and, not necessarily the only woman in the room, even if I am one of few, but she kind of reminded me of why it is that I am. And so I felt pretty good about it. It just seemed like the right time to pursue like all kinds of different avenues as I'm kind of in the dawn of a new phase of my career. And now also having become a freelancer during the fellowship, I could not be more grateful to have had it as I look forward into what my next steps might be.
How did you find out then that you were selected for the Diversity Fellowship?
Oh, George Rojas, that wonderful man, gave me a call. And I got the call from it was just a Miami number. And because of, the nature of being a sports editor, I don't usually answer my phone for unknown numbers, but I had just a feeling like, let's answer this call. And he told me I've been selected, and kind of, it was almost like a fever dream, him walking me through, okay, so this is next, this is next, this is next. And it was so exciting. I was really, really just thrilled. And he kind of gave me like a little bit of a rundown of some of the other fellows who'd been offered. And I thought to myself, wow, this is going to be a really unique group.
When did you start to connect with the other members of your group then?
Well, Nashville was our first conference. We got to Nashville, and I knew that Rox would be there, and I told her that I'd accepted the fellowship, and she was thrilled. And of course, George and Lisa Wilson, who is just fantastic. I'd never been to Nashville, so I actually went a day early because I have a little bit of flight anxiety. So it's like, okay, if I plan to go a day early, I know I'm going to get there in time. And wanted to explore Nashville. And I got there, and we just kind of hit the ground running right away. And it was kind of funny. There is an aspect of the fellowship that, now having spoken with previous fellows in addition to my class, it seems to be the most daunting. The consensus is that this is the most daunting, is that we have to give a 15-minute speech about something that is important to us as kind of a public speaking module. And there was really no time to get to know each other before we started diving into those. But so that was a little scary, but it was a really great way to kind of get to know what everyone enjoys. And some of them were sports, and others kind of had tie-ins to sports, but were unrelated. And it broke down that barrier really, really quickly for us. They also do a fantastic job of putting us in, like, immediately. Our first situation, our first interaction, we all checked in, we met our roommates, and then we all went to a wine bar and were forced to kind of interact. It was like mandatory fun. And it was just very, very fun. Just kind of getting to know each other and finding people that we had in common. It was great.
What were some of the takeaways once you kind of got into the more learning mode of Diversity Weekend in Nashville?
Oh man, there were so many. We talked a lot about specific diversity topics. Lisa led a session about, being a woman in sport, that I think we started with 6 fellows, and 2 of us were women. And I think that was it was certainly interesting for us, the ladies, to get to hear from other women who have been doing it much longer than we have, about their experiences and kind of fighting through, honestly, a time before us when it was even harder. And I'm not saying it's particularly easy now, but there just kind of that culture of collaborative conversation that was fostered was really great in that instance. Again, the public speaking was great. Just some of us had we'd tap someone and be like, hey, give us a signal, like when we're at almost time or whatever. But not a lot of us, most of us are sitting behind a desk doing this for most of our day. So having the opportunity to kind of interact in a little bit more of a polished, presentational environment was really informative just in practice. And then we did some really cool events our diversity weekend as well. One of them, we went to a Nashville Predators game, and beforehand we got to sit with the president of the team and some of his high up staffers, which, by the way, were all women, which was so cool. It was just this really, really lovely man. And then this panel of women who talked about what they do and, had really productive conversations with us about how we as journalists can serve what they do and their missions, and also how they can best serve us. There was just so much to take away. We left Nashville exhausted, I'll tell you that much.
When you got to judging then, like, how did that go? How was that experience for you? And what were some highlights of the contest judging for you?
Oh, it was wild. It was like a reading marathon. I know of some people who went and actually did their jobs while they were judging, and that's not something that I could have done in any way. Some of the categories are much larger than others, but it was really cool to get to know work from areas of the country that I didn't know. But from those areas, I judged a lot of the C and D categories, and I believe it was C and D. And even from some of these papers that I'd honestly never even heard of, I was able to I found myself, okay, I'm taking notes on the work itself so that I can do my rankings and come back and be an effective member of my group. But I had a separate notepad that was like, oh, we could do this. Finding just different ideas to bring back to my newsroom, just from the sheer volume of work that we were reading, was really, really cool.
What is some of the work you're most proud of that you've been part of creating in your career?
Ooh, sure. Okay. I think so. Before I made the transition into more of a sports editor role, for 4 years I worked for a company called McClatchy, which, for your audience, if they're not familiar, is a conglomerate. They own 30 local newspapers throughout the U.S., including the Miami Herald and the Kansas City Star and the Charlotte Observer. And my role there, I started as an audio fellow and was brought in specifically to help finish a sports documentary. And that was audio forward, but had video and text components as well. It was a full multimedia package. And they ended up keeping me on because I had a few pitches. And it turned into a 4-year evolution where at the end of my time there, before they eliminated my position, I was the only audio employee at McClatchy. And during that last year and a half or so, I got to spearhead a documentary called Payback, which we were partnered with. Thankfully, iHeartRadio partnered with us to produce it. And it was audio forward with video and text elements. And it was it was supposed to be about the U.S. women's national team's fight for equal pay. It turned into a kind of large oversight of all of the inequities that exist in U.S. soccer. We did it through the lens of the only single mom on the 2019 U.S. women's team that won the World Cup. And in our reporting, one of our best sources, who was giving us a lot of time and a lot of tours and a lot of one-on-one, was a coach named Paul Riley, who during our reporting was outed as a sexual predator. And having to combat, as the series had already kind of started releasing, we were doing a weekly release, having to combat being sensitive to the survivors of his abuse and the survivors of all of these abuses in new ways, and rewrite and republish and kind of reconfigure the story that we were telling on the fly is something that I'm incredibly proud of. I think we did a pretty good job. So you can check that out if you'd like. It's on anywhere you find podcasts. It's Long Shot: Payback. And and I was really proud of our tagline. Our tagline was "Fight like a mother." Ha ha ha. Anyways.
That's clever. What you talked about that experience. Could you kind of run through what your career's been to this point?
Sure. Yeah. So again, I started pretty late. I got a really irrelevant degree, undergrad degree, and decided I didn't want to do that with the rest of my life. At the time, I was working in sports bars, and I was not the biggest sports fan, to say the least. My father actually works in the sports entertainment industry. And it was something that I kind of resented and avoided for a very long time, but I figured out that you make better tips if you know what you're talking about with your customers. So I started my first blog because I needed some kind of a writing outlet while I was tending bar, and someone bought it, and I started writing for another publication, and just kind of figured out that I needed to go to journalism school if I was going to do anything seriously. So I went and got my master's. And after that, it was just McClatchy and creating these documentaries. In addition, getting to work with all of these really talented journalists and columnists at all of these papers, building their, I hate this term, but building their brands through audio programming, creating really interesting sports podcasts. Scott Fowler and I down at the Charlotte Observer created Sports Legends of the Carolinas, where he sits down in person. That was something that he really wanted to do post-COVID. With legends from all over the Carolinas, just to kind of see what they're up to and talk about the things that they have in the pipeline post heyday, I guess, and current events as well. And yeah, after that, became a sports editor and decided that that's not exactly my lane in the traditional sense. So that's how I've become a freelancer now. But it's been an interesting journey, and I know that whatever it comes next, ideally it will have something to do with sports and keep me involved with APSE. That is key. If there were any takeaways from this last conference, I really appreciated all of the wonderful, wonderful people who came up to me and asked me, what do you want to do next? And I still don't really know the answer, but I got a lot of practice trying to figure it out. And I think I got a little bit closer, and but it just made me so sure that I hope this organization is a part of my life and my career for a very long time.
Well, congratulations on completing the APSE Diversity Fellowship, and it sounds like you've gained a lot from it. What would be your advice for anyone considering applying for the fellowship next year?
Oh my gosh, other than just do it, just do it. There's absolutely no harm in applying. And I do think too, our group were a lot of sports editors, but for a lot of different, again, we had my buddy Courtney from the Cape Cod Times, which is a smaller market and very focused on high school sports, versus my friend Ainsley, who runs a whole region of mostly college sports coverage. And then I'm a freelancer, and our friend Dan is he's a page designer, and our friend Mark is he does a lot of social media. I mean, there's just so many different ways to gained so much from this experience, no matter what it is, like what your lane in sports journalism is. As long as you're interested in training to be a leader, there's something for you here. And yeah, it's been just absolutely invaluable. So please apply, and you can find all of us on social media. So reach out to any of the past fellows, and we'll just keep pushing and telling you, because we all, I think, had collectively just had the most amazing time.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Is there anything else you want to add about your experience?
It was awesome, and I'm really sad it's over. but it's actually, it's not over. We're kind of George has a big project where he's trying to keep all of the fellows a little bit more connected. So we've all been talking to past fellows and working on some profiles about them. And we're all still in contact about jobs and opportunities. And I have a very long legal pad list of outreach that I need to do tomorrow. So even when it's over, it's not over. And yeah, again, just incredibly grateful.
Well, thanks so much for your time, and congratulations on being part of the Diversity Fellowship this year.
Of course. Thanks, Erik.